So, hello to everyone watching this. I'm Gilly. I am one of the program organizers at Amplify Montana Youth. My pronouns are she, her. I'm based out of Missoula, and we are here today with Kimberly Dudik, and I'll pass it over to Ali.
Well, hi, everybody. My name is Ali. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the other organizer behind Amplify MT Youth. And today we're going to be chatting with Kimberly Dudik. So, Kimberly, if you'd like to introduce yourself, that would be great.
You bet. My name's Kimberly Dudik. I'm running for Montana Attorney General. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really excited to talk with you all today.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. So to start off, we'll kind of just get a little background on you and why you're running. So I guess we'll start with that. What kind of led you to run for Attorney General?
I'm running for Attorney General because I really think we need a strong, proven advocate in that office who's going to stand up for our rights, protect citizens, and ensure that we have a bright future here in Montana. And I'm just driven to do that based off my experiences as an attorney, as a lawmaker, and as a citizen. I really think I have the potential to do great things for our state.
Thank you. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what the Attorney General does? What is the role of the Attorney General here in Montana?
So the Attorney General by the Montana Constitution is the chief legal officer of the state. The Attorney General acts as an administrator of multiple state agencies. The Attorney General runs the Department of Justice and heads about 800 employees, and they do various things. The Attorney General, what the role is to protect citizens' rights, to ensure that our Constitution is not being violated, and then to act to ensure if violations do happen, that we take care of those. So the Attorney General oversees the Department of Criminal Investigation, the Montana Highway Patrol, the State Crime Lab, the Motor Vehicle Division, the Consumer Protection Agency. So the Attorney General oversees these divisions and ensures that they're working correctly. And then the Attorney General also is a policy maker in our state, bringing a package of legislation forward every legislative session. And those occur every other year in odd-numbered years for 4 months. And so it's a really good way to bring our state forward, not only by representing the state in court cases and litigation, but also by shaping what we are protecting in our state through policy and lawmaking.
Thank you. So now we're both in high school, and so why should the Attorney General position and who is elected to that position, why should that matter for younger students like us?
It should matter for everyone. So whether or not you have the right to vote yet, the Attorney General has the right to affect your rights. So the Attorney General of the state, for example, has the ability to protect your right to an education and a fair funding for that education. And the Attorney General also is supposed to protect our right to a clean and healthful environment in our access to our public lands. And that's something I actually have a plan coming out on today because it's something that the Attorney General can really help with. But the Attorney General also does other things with basic rights. The Attorney General can either protect or work against a woman's right to reproductive health care. Or the Attorney General can either, again, protect or work against having affordable health care and ensuring that people can have access to health care and that it's something that everyone can access. So the Attorney General does different things that impact everyone's rights and can roll our state backwards or move it forward. So everyone should be interested in what the Attorney General does.
Thank you. So what experience do you have? Why do you believe you are qualified to be the next Attorney General?
My experience professionally is I've been working as a professional, really helping people who can't help themselves for about 20 years. I started that as a registered nurse and advocate for domestic violence survivors 2 decades ago. And I found that I wanted to do more to help people after I saw some of the problems that the babies I was caring for or that the people I was helping to escape violent situations were facing. So I went to law school and I've been an attorney now for about 18 years. And in that time, I've developed a lot of experience that's really relevant to the Attorney General's office, that role, and how to utilize that role to really move our state forward. So just to give you some examples, I started as a Supreme Court law clerk And in that way, assured justice was found at the Supreme Court, working with our justices there. But then I became a county prosecutor. And what that does is, if anything from as simple as being in a car wreck, or if somebody you know has been assaulted, or more serious crimes, then the county prosecutors are the ones who ensure that people are held accountable and that victims are treated fairly throughout the system. So I've done that at the county level for about 3 years in Bozeman. And then I went on to work as an attorney general under Steve Bullock when he was our attorney general for about 3 more years. And in that role, I focused more on protecting children and ensuring they were in safe situations. But I found that I still wanted to do more. So I decided to leave my assistant attorney general position and become a lawmaker. So for the last 8 years, I've been an attorney in private practice, representing workers to make sure they're treated fairly, ensuring that crime victims are compensated for whatever has occurred to them. But I've also been a lawmaker, moving forth some really key pieces of legislation dealing with reforming our criminal justice system to try and make it more fair to people and also provide them a pathway out of criminal justice experience. And I've also reformed our human trafficking laws to try and stop that crime, and our child abuse protections to ensure that children are treated fairly. But also, even beyond that, I've done things like campaign finance reform to make sure we try and keep dark money out of our campaigns and protect those, as well as other things that are really important to people. So I have all of this experience. And one of the key things that I've been able to do is bring people from diverse backgrounds across the state together around the same table to look at these issues, to come to common sense solutions, and then move those forward. So we've actually made some really good progress in our state under my leadership. And it's that kind of, fighting for our rights, but also the bringing people together to make progress that I bring. And I think it's exactly what we need as an attorney general right now, especially with what we're seeing nationally.
Awesome, thank you. So what is the role of the Attorney General in kind of pushing some climate action in the state?
That's something that's actually really exciting. So the Attorney General can do a few different things. I'm glad you asked that. So the Attorney General is one of the 5 statewide positions on the State Land Board. And in that position, we deal with things like oil and gas leases or conservation easements and other things that deal with access to our public lands and trying to keep them healthy and not exploited. But beyond that, the Attorney General is in the unique position of being able to bring suit on behalf of the citizens of our state to enforce our right to a clean and healthful environment for now and future generations. So the Attorney General could bring a lawsuit against maybe ExxonMobil, is what another Attorney General did in a different state, and try and hold them accountable if they're polluting or if they've committed fraud against their investors, which is what we saw in that case. But more relevant to here, the Attorney General could try and ensure that we have the protections that we are already guaranteed, that the regulations are being enforced, and that we're not having any more rollbacks federally of our right to clean and healthful environment or our quality of water or quality of air, and really push for protections that way. So the Attorney General is really suited to do things on different levels and really ensure that we keep our right to a clean and healthful environment, and that includes climate change. So the Attorney General can be very active in that, and we're one of the few states who have that in our Constitution. So it really provides Montana and the Attorney General with a great vantage point to work from to make some good change there.
Thank you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the impact that the Attorney General can have on abortion access here in Montana and your personal thoughts on the issue?
So I've been and I have been a vocal supporter of reproductive rights, reproductive access, and I think we need to ensure that we don't have any further infringement on our rights. So the Attorney General, what we've seen with our current Attorney General, is he actually joined in what's called an amicus brief. It's just kind of a friend of the court brief where a person wants to give a statement about a case even though they're not really involved. He did that for an abortion law that was restrictive out of North Carolina, and he was in support of restricting access to abortion. And so the Attorney General, I would do the exact opposite. First of all, I wouldn't waste our time and money on getting involved in these out-of-state lawsuits that clearly violate our rights here in Montana. In Montana, the Supreme Court has said that our right to privacy in our Constitution guarantees our right to reproductive health care access. So the Attorney General needs to ensure that they're fighting to protect that right. And so any sort of laws that infringe on that, the Attorney General needs to be working against or not defending, because the Attorney General is supposed to defend the laws of our state, but they have to be constitutional laws. And those that infringe on that right clearly aren't. So the Attorney General can work to ensure that laws aren't working against our rights there. But also, we have a case like up in the Flathead area where 2 nurse practitioners wanted to help provide reproductive health care, including abortions. And the Attorney General was actually working against that. So if I was Attorney General, I would actually be supporting those healthcare practitioners. Having been a nurse myself, I know how important it is to be able to provide the healthcare access your clients need. And I would be supporting their rights, and I would be ensuring that nothing was happening to go against our right to reproductive health care, and that there weren't any violations occurring there.
Awesome, thank you. So what is the role of the Attorney General in addressing the rising incarceration rates in our state?
So the Attorney General is not in charge of the Department of Corrections. That's under the governor. But what the Attorney General is in charge of the Montana Highway Patrol, the Department of Criminal Investigation, but also it's supposed to be kind of an oversight of the county attorney's offices. And so the Attorney General is uniquely situated there to push for reforms in our criminal justice system that make it safer. And I was actually part personally of starting our criminal justice reforms in our state in 2017, because in my service in the legislature, I serve on the Appropriations Committee. And what we do there is we look at our state budget, where we're spending money and what's working and what's not. So we saw that we were spending an increasing amount of money on incarcerating people, but our state wasn't getting any safer. In fact, we saw that it was getting less safe. So we decided to be smart on crime, not just tough on crime, but actually be smart and try and figure out how to decrease crime rates and help people get out of the criminal justice system by getting the help they need. So I led some reforms there, but what the Attorney General needs to do is ensure, first of all, that our laws are being followed and enforced. What we've seen is that some of the legal changes that were made in 2017 and 2019 aren't really being followed as well as they could be. And one of the problems is that we don't have enough funding to provide the type of community services or treatment and rehabilitation that's needed for people to get out of the criminal justice system. So as Attorney General, the Attorney General should be leading that fight to ensure we have appropriate resources for that, and that we can actually ensure that our communities are safe, because the Attorney General is supposed to be the chief legal officer of the state, the chief law enforcement officer, and that goes hand in hand with ensuring that we have a fair criminal justice system that actually makes our communities safe, and that it provides people with rehabilitation that they need to be safe in our communities. So it's really something that the Attorney General can lead on, including ensuring that we have more chemical dependency treatment in our state. We are seeing a lot of rises in methamphetamine crimes. They've increased by like over 300% in the last few years. And also our heroin crimes, they're really increasing. So we see that people need treatment when they're caught up in those crimes, but we don't have the treatment in our state. For chemical dependency problems in general, we only have enough treatment for like 10% of those. And so nobody's really pushing for more reforms there. And as the Attorney General, I plan to continue the work I've started in the Public Defender's Office by providing people with a pathway out of the criminal justice system and ensuring our communities are safe. So that's something the Attorney General should be front and center on.
Great, thank you so much. As Attorney General, how would you work with Montana's sovereign tribal nations?
So as the Attorney General, I have a plan to establish an official Office of Native American Affairs to work as a partner with our tribal entities, with our indigenous communities, and ensure that we actually build the capacity of those communities to deal with the problems they're seeing and to deal with all the jurisdictional issues that frequently get in the way of effective responses to problems. So I plan on establishing an official office, building off the work already being done, that has representation from all of the tribes and the tribal communities, meeting on a regular basis with all levels of law enforcement, city, county, tribal, state, and federal, to ensure that we actually are communicating about the problems we're seeing and developing solutions to those problems. And two examples of this is, one is with the drug trafficking we're seeing in our state. Our reservations are being targeted by these drug traffickers because they see that they can easily get in there and distribute their drugs and make a profit. So we need a statewide approach that helps build the capacity of our tribal nations to deal with that and effectively address it. And one of the other areas that I've worked on quite a bit is with missing and murdered Indigenous people. Native American women are 10 times more likely to be murdered than non-Native, and Native American peoples in general in Montana are 4 times more likely to be murdered than non-Native. And that's completely unacceptable to me. So I think that we need to really work at addressing the underlying causes of why that's happening, figuring that out, and then actually working to address those underlying causes, not just incarcerating more people, but actually making our communities safer. And we have a long ways to go there, but we need to start doing it now. It's been ignored for entirely too long.
Thank you. So what is the role of the Attorney General in advocating for LGBTQ+ youth in Montana, and how would you go about doing so?
So that's something, again, that I've been a very strong supporter of in my lawmaking capacity, and that I will continue that as Attorney General. In Montana, we have a right to equality. Unfortunately, our hate crimes does not include, and also our discrimination crimes does not include sexual orientation or identity, but it's something that the Attorney General needs to be working on. As Attorney General, I plan first on investigating and gathering data on how many hate crimes we're seeing and what kind of discrimination we're seeing. In talking with people in our state, we really aren't gathering enough data there, so we don't really know what's going on and how we can help with that. So that's one thing there. But I think that we also need to have an Attorney General who isn't afraid to lead the conversation about equality and what that really means, and to set the tone for our state, and to ensure that our law enforcement officers, or that our landlords, or that our employers don't feel emboldened to discriminate against people based on their sexual orientation or identity. So that's something that I plan to lead on. And one of the other areas actually that I recently talked with somebody about was that she's a transgender individual, possibly engaging in an activity that's not extremely lawful, but while doing this, she's being assaulted. And she doesn't feel as though she can report this crime because what she's engaging in is not necessarily lawful in our state. So I actually think we need to look at how we can modify our laws to ensure that people can report crimes that have been committed against them, and at the same time not then be prosecuted. One example of this is for underage people, if you're drinking underage and you are sexually assaulted, you can report that sexual assault and you should not be prosecuted for underage drinking. So I think that we need to look at expanding that and how we can help provide protection to people who are maybe also engaging in activities that aren't lawful, but then they're being made a victim of a crime, and we need to ensure that they can actually receive the full protections of our laws too. So that's some work that I've been working on now, and I think is really important.
Great, thank you. So this is kind of a bigger picture question, but what do you think is the most important job of the Attorney General?
The most important job of the Attorney General is to ensure that our rights aren't being infringed on and that they're being protected. We have a wonderful constitution in Montana. It was written in 1972, and it provides a lot of rights that right now we are seeing pushbacks federally, that people want to roll back those same sorts of rights federally. So I think the Attorney General needs to be a strong, outspoken advocate and champion of our rights, ensuring that they aren't being violated, whether it's our right to a clean and healthful environment and environmental standards being rolled back, or our right to equality or our rights to reproductive health care. There are so many things right now that we're seeing a federal push to roll back. The Attorney General needs to be at the forefront of those and championing those rights, ensuring they're protected, and either joining in lawsuits or bringing lawsuits to stop the rollbacks that we're seeing and to hold people accountable when they're trying to roll back those rights. So the Attorney General really is the chief legal officer of the state, the chief advocate for the people of our state for protecting our rights and ensuring they stay protected.
Thank you. So this is kind of going to be our final question, and then we'll wrap it up here. But let's say you are elected as the next Attorney General of Montana. What would you like your legacy to be when you leave office?
Oh, I want my legacy to be huge, right? Because there are so many things I care about. So I want my legacy to be one of progress and of change in our state in a way that is positive. And that really encompasses all of it. We need to protect our rights, but we need to have progress. We can't just stay where we're at, because like the things I'm talking about, violence against women, against our Native communities, we need to have progress there. And we need to have a statewide leader who's actually putting that at the forefront, who wants to stop human trafficking, who wants to stop, child abuse, who wants to deal with our chemical dependency problems and not just pass it off to the next person or say it's somebody else's issue to deal with. There are so many things that need to be done and that haven't been done because people haven't taken them up as the right cause to champion. And those are the things, the issues that have been ignored for entirely too long, that I want to address, and that I think that really we need to make movement on. And that would be my legacy, is that I have actually addressed those issues that have been ignored for decades, and that we've made real change there that makes our state better for everyone, not just for Democrats, not just for Republicans, but everyone who lives here at all ages, that our state is safer and that our rights are protected.
Thank you so much. I think that concludes our interview today. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad you guys are doing this. It's a great project. It's great for us, but I think it's just so wonderful that you're doing it. And I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if anyone watching this, if you've seen the end of our videos, I do this every time, but the primary is coming up. So please, if you're going to be 18 by then or 18 or over now, please vote. Doesn't matter for who, just get out and vote. It's mail-in this year because of COVID-19. But yes, that's all. I think we're going to wrap it up now. Thank you again so much for being here.